Hey, it's CF Tracking here with an initial thoughts for the Amazfit Stratos 3. Now this watch is actually super unique and I'm going to be testing over the next few days, but I wanted to get some initial thoughts out there because I think it offers something that I did not expect as far as value for the cost. So looking at the specifics of it, the details, it's 48 millimeters wide. I'm going to kind of compare this to just some of the other devices on the market that are in the similar size ballpark. So the Garmin 945 is 47 millimeters, the Polar Grid's 47 millimeters. This is rated at like 13 millimeters thick, and it's actually 13 and a half millimeters thick. When you compare that, the Grid X is 15.7 millimeters actually thick. So it's considerably skinnier, even though it's broader. So it's got a 1.2 inch screen, and the 945 and the Grit have 1.2 inch screens. This is actually 1.32 inch screen. So it's actually got a bigger screen than the 945 and the Grit X. And it's 320 by 320 resolution, which is about 25% higher resolution than the Grit X and the 945, which both have 240 by 240. So this comes in at 62 grams. That's about on average with the Grit X. A lot of these things sort of similarly link up to the Grit X offering, but this just does things better and cheaper than the Grid X. So I have been testing it. It says 7 days of battery life, just full use. I've been testing it and getting about 3.5 days, or that's what I'm on target for. And that's keeping the brightness of the backlight at a 3. But that's the thing about this. When you look at brightness, this thing will go bright. So I'm getting at the top end of the spectrum, like 72 lumens, which is one of the brightest transflective devices I've ever tested. You compare that to the Polar Grid X at 27 max brightness, 27 lumens. This is a lot brighter. It's like 3 times brighter or just under that. So considerably brighter, and it has flexibility. You can go from like a 1 to a 4 for adjustment of the brightness. So still 3.5 days, you could get more battery life if you turn down the brightness, which I just don't want to do. 22 millimeter quick release tabs. It's interesting because of the build quality. You know, it's a cheap watch. It's $200, $199 compared to like $400 for the Grid X and obviously $600 for the 945. And it doesn't really compare with the 945 in a bunch of different metrics, except for some of the basic training metrics. But bright, higher quality resolution. It is a touch screen, and you have some customizations built into it. So obviously, the most important thing is how does it track sports and training. So it does have all of the first beat analytics. It's not as detailed as the 945, but it does compare for sure directly to the 245 and the Grit X. Now, first beat will give you the training effect, so the aerobic training effect, the recovery time, and then your training load over time, as well as a training status. I haven't been able to get a training status yet, but you know, everything went fine so far in the first workout. Compared to the Polar Grid X, which will do a cardio load, which is sort of like the training effect, and a load over time. They kind of don't have training recovery time built into that sort of platform anymore, but you still get the basic training aspects like on the Grid X. But here you get the first beat data, which is what Garmin uses, which is what a number of other companies use. So high quality data for training analysis. One of the things that's clearly going to be an issue is the sleep quality tracking. So if you compare that to Garmin, they're continuing to advance their sleep tracking and they offer body battery. This just does a more basic sleep tracking. So it just super basic. And I'll show you some hands-on. We'll look at the device and we'll look at the app in just a second and then talk about the summary. But it does have customizations. It does have sort of a baseline stable platform, and a lot of it is just much better, more efficient, and more effective, more customizable than the whole Polar experience if you were going to compare these sort of side by side. I just give this as a point of reference because those are more mainstream American well-known watches and this is lesser well-known, but I'm finding it to come off better and work more effectively. So let's get into the hands-on, then we'll come back for a summary. Okay, so just look at a few things basically within the two devices or within the watch itself. So this is just the main landing page. You can obviously swipe to the left to get a list of the applications, and we'll go into those in a second. And you can swipe to the right to control music and actually go down to control notifications. So music, when you've actually played something, will populate up at the top, and then you'll have your notifications down here. This is what a notification looks. I can't quite, I mean, it's not super legible just because at a distance of an arm's reach, when it comes up, it's not the brightest, but still works. And then now you have your widgets. So you scroll down, you can scroll up, or actually you would go down to get the next level up for the basic quick settings page. This is to turn on and off the wrist raise backlight gesture. That's so that the backlight gesture comes on, and obviously if you push the button up here, it'll go into settings. This is ultra mode, do not disturb, airplane, some basic things there. But if you scroll down, you get your widgets. One of the things that's great is you can actually set any of the main apps to be a widget page, and then you can click into any of them and it'll give you, detailed information for steps, calories, floors climbed, long time sitting. So actually a lot of useful information in the health page. And then you have your activities. You can just click on the triple dots and it'll give you activity history over a period. So strength training, and running. I just use strength training just as an initial setup, but now I'm going to start using indoor fitness because you can edit the data pages on indoor fitness. So one of the great things, again, this is after just, tracking or trying or reviewing the Honor or Huawei watch, the GT / Honor Magic Watch 2. But you can get a lot more information on the weather. You set your alarms. Compass is actually pretty neat. It wants you to calibrate it first. You just go in circles. But, compared to, the Garmin watches, this is actually a pretty useful or simply accessed widget, just like in the Garmin watch series, but not really accessible or not as easy as on the Polar Grit X. Sleep, I'm going to look at that in the app, but you can access it here. Music is just to control for me because I'm not downloading MP3s, just to control music on the phone. Heart rate graph, you can click into the heart rate and you can see a bunch of like the chart as well as the details over time. Resting heart rate is good. I mean, everything is really working pretty spot on. You're back to the top there. So what does it look like when you're going into, so you're going to hit the top button here to get your activities. There's indoor fitness. You have rowing machine, elliptical. So you have a bunch. So there's like 13 or 12 primary ones that you can edit data for. So I tried strength training, but on the indoor fitness, you can scroll up from the bottom and hit settings, and your display settings will give you how many data fields you want to see. So again, another impressive thing that you can display. Now you don't get a laundry list of data to display in the workout, and I'll show you on the app, but you at least have the flexibility to upgrade. And then I like the fact that you can go from a black background to a white background. Again, the customization is really pretty spot on. So what do you get when you go into a workout? It's going to look like this if you have set it for 5 data fields. So lap time, calories. You can adjust which of these comes higher in the list, but you can't quite do any other adjustments. So average heart rate, lap time, the time down at the bottom. But it does give you a pretty good heart rate gauge, so you can see over a course of time as well as the gauge itself. That's just, that's about as good as it gets. So you click the button to stop. One thing about the device itself is it has scrolling up and down here. So if you don't want to use the touch screen, and the touch screen I found to be working just fine, you can actually scroll up and down here. Here you could actually fix the brightness for just this particular workout as well. So a lot of flexibility, and the buttons I hit the wrong one, but the buttons work well. So, I mean, everything is functioning. This is the back button just to go back to the main page. Again, it's 48 millimeters across, but the screen size is 1.32 inches, which is bigger than the 1.2 inches we see on the 945, the Grid X, the 245. You have your primary connector points here, 22 millimeter quick release. It is a metal backing, and it's got this sort of pattern to it, which I think is just probably going to be easily scratched. But for whatever reason, they have a ceramic bezel, which is like a fancy thing that you see on more expensive Samsung or Apple watches, but it's a ceramic bezel. I really wish they had made it black instead of this silvery. I just don't tend to like silver. So that's what you see when you work out. And then the more important thing is, what do you see when you're done with the workout? So there's two ways you can see it. So basically you go into your activities app and you can tap into the most recent, sometimes that is a little glitchy. So you can tap into the most recent workout. So we're going to go into yesterday's, just like a 3-minute EMOM for a bunch of different snatch complex type things. But you can see that it gives you average heart rate, max heart rate, min heart rate. It gives you your zones, and then it gives you your training effect. So this is one of the primary things about the watch that's effective. It's measured off of First Beats analytics. You get a pretty graph, which is really, you get a lot of data that's easy to swipe through, because the touchscreen does make it really easy just to get to your data. Versus in Garmin, you would see you could enter into one subset of data at a time, but you can't just sort of scroll through all of it, including pretty pictures. So that's what you look at when you're looking at the summary here. But the other way that you would look at information about workouts and workout analysis is you go into this exercise status. This is going to be where you're building your load. I've only done minor workouts so far, but your VO2 max. So I just did a 10-minute run like it said you have to do to get a VO2 max score. Recovery time is depleted out, but I think it built up to 17 hours of recovery time with these 3 miniature workouts I did. Running performance, so you have to wear the watch and run more than 3 kilometers, but it does give you records, running performance predictions. So this is like your expected times. This is a lot of the high-level stats you would get at the minimum on the Garmin 245, which starts out at $299 and $349 for music. So VO2 max, but it's all well laid out. It's all pretty spot on. You can see a bunch of the other apps here. So the barometer, it does have a barometric altimeter, which is not available on the Garmin 245. So again, that's another interesting piece. I guess you switch here to get the altitude. It's using GPS as a supplement, and then you switch back to get the pressure itself. Back to the app page. Stopwatch, timer, music. Again, you can download MP3s, but I'm not going to bother with that, and I don't even have really much of an MP3 collection. One thing I don't like is I don't really like any of the watch faces. I don't know what it is about Amazfit. They want to have watch faces that are, oh, this is going into the store. Now, this is something I've actually didn't know was in existence. I don't know if it's going to get any specialty watch face access. So I guess I'll have to go through a network, but I will try that for the later review. But either way, you can access a collection of watch faces on the phone, but you get just a few. They don't all look that great. So if I'm looking at it, I do find that the brightness is good on this, but the color resolution, it's really kind of grayed out on the blacks, and so it makes the colors not as sharp. I don't like a whole bunch of data on a screen. I'd rather just have simplicity, but most of these, you hold your finger on the screen itself, and it will bring up the options here. So, again, I don't love all of these, and they're too complicated. I want something sort of simple, and then when you go with something that's a little bit simple and clean, it's a little bit of a washed out background to me. So I really wish the black was more black, and I wish they had just a broader range. But now I see that there might be a store to go to access maybe other simple backdrops. So anyway, that's what the watch face looks like. So you do have a collection of different options on the watch faces. So let's get into the app just before I waste all the time just looking at watch faces. But here's the main app. You get your steps count in the beginning, your calories burned, your sleep, your heart rate, sleep score, training load, and VO2 max. So I don't see a training status yet, but I know that the watch is new to me. So usually you have to run for a week, or you have to do workouts for a longer period of time to get a training status of whether you're productive or underproductive or maintaining. But either way, looking at some of these details, one of the things that you'll see really quickly is you get a sleep score, which is fantastic, but you don't get much detail on the sleep. This was not right. I got up in the middle of the night. I know I got up at 2 o'clock to use the bathroom. So that, that missed that. And then it is super generic. Now, like the first night that I did, it had at least some periods of deep and light, but it doesn't really track deep, light, and REM. So not a whole lot of helpfulness there, although they do give it a score. And I guess last night I did have more of a solid sleep. And I guess the previous night Well, no, I had a worse night of sleep there, so I have to watch that score because that was not accurate. Training load is great. It's just based on the epoch, and it will build over time. So we're going to watch this graph to see how it adjusts over time, but looks good so far. The VO2 max you can see for day, week, and month, but again, we're starting at a good just overall basic metric. And when you go in to look at an activity or to work out, this is what you get on a strength training workout. The basic thing is you're going to get this main content here, and then you're going to get a chart and a chart. One of the things to notice is that the heart rate is definitely not spot on. So this was a 3-minute EMOM, or basically every 3 minutes I did a different type of snatch or overhead squat workout. It's probably 30 to 40 seconds of work because I'm just trying to develop technique and strengthen particular movement areas. But it was everything from a single arm dumbbell overhead squat to alternating dumbbell squats to full technique focused squat snatch. So every 3 minutes, but this does not pick it up at all. So if you were to go into yesterday's workout and look at it on the proper graph, it would look like this. So this is what it should look like, and this is what it did look like. Plus, it didn't capture a lot of the upper level times because my heart rate did get into the upper zones. So it was peaking at a higher level. We're not going to look at it in that detail. So the biggest thing we're seeing here is that you have to have a chest strap in order to really get the most out of this, because it did give me a training effect of 3, whereas Polar only gave me like a mid-range, so 52. So I would say like 100 is like pretty much fully spent of a workout. So 52 is right in the middle. So this would be like a 2.5, but this actually captured the right heart rate because it was a chest strap. So some things to study in greater depth there. But overall, this is what you're going to see on a workout. Now, if you did do a run, and I did just do a sort of an easy run, you'll see periods. I do like that it shows you, like red is the period you were running faster, or shows you different like speed levels by color, and you get a bunch of different stats and details, not really that pertinent or that important for CrossFit training. But you do get all of these things that show this is your performance effect. I mean, that is a high level stat. I think that's only available in the 945 or maybe now the 745. I don't think it's a 245 stat. So you get a lot of stats, a lot of details. The app functions and works well, as well as the watch functions and works well, even with quirks or things I'd like to see improved. So let's go to a basic summary. So what am I liking so far? There's a lot that this actually can do and does well. For $199 from what is, to me, a lesser-known company of Amazfit. They've been around for a long time doing all sorts of crazy devices that mimic different ones on the market, but it actually is a pretty solid device because you can connect it to a chest strap, which is of primary importance if you have all the analytics along with it. What do I not like about it? I feel like the sleep tracking is bad. It's just simple so far in this 2 nights, but just not helpful for evaluating, recovery and rest. The colorization, as you saw in the video, the colorization is not great, but I do like you can jack the brightness up. But the colorization, the quality of the blacks is not great. I don't like the watch faces. And I don't like the look of the watch. I feel like I just don't like it. Actually, if you look back at the previous renditions of the Stratos, this is the Stratos 3, you look back at previous renditions, they looked actually better. I just wish, I just want that other look rather than this ceramic bezel. I don't know why they put a ceramic bezel. That's supposed to be a fancy thing, but it just doesn't look great in my opinion. But what did I do like? So far, I really do like the platform. The platform that the watch is built on, the platform of the app. I feel like everything is functional in all these different aspects. It's got simplicity to it, but it also has customization. The fact that you can add in widgets and you can change what you can quick access as far as information, that's great. A lot of platforms don't do it. Polar surely doesn't do any of that customization. So I like that it's a functional system both on the watch and on the app itself. Both seem to have stabilization and, effective use. I do like that it has adjustable brightness and you can turn the brightness up. I do think the touch screen is effective and working. I feel like, all of the basics are working well so far. I feel like the weight is nothing to even feel. It's not a problem at all. And the build quality feels solid. Obviously, the workout analysis so far has been great. I feel like it's awesome. I just wish Amazfit would offer an AMOLED version of this exact watch and we'd be off to the races, because the fact you can chest strap link it and you get all the workout analysis and training load and training effect and recovery time, those things are great. So stay tuned for the final review. Thanks so much for watching.